Okay, well, today we've got a great podcast lined up for you. We have a special guest that probably doesn't need a major introduction to those in our industry. He is an amazing husband, father, leader, CMB, just like your host here, and an amazing person to talk to. And we are excited. So I'm Ralph Remy,
I'm Cheri
and we
McCarthy.
are ready for another episode of the Mortgage Mix. Join us. With the one and only Peter Benjamin, president of ACUMA, is joining us. Peter, my friend, how are you today?
I am awesome. Ralph, Cheri, thank you very much for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us. I find it pretty cool to be almost, I don't want to say I'm on the other side of the mic because I have been a guest on your podcast in the past, because I don't feel there's like one side of the mic to the other when we chat. It's just usually two friends having a conversation, and it kind of just goes on, and we find some pretty cool stuff that we come up with along the way. So I introduced, and it kind of led up to kind of talking about the Peter Benjamin, the person, before we get into the professional. So Cheri, I know you wanted to, you haven't been exposed to Peter as much as I have. You wanted to learn a little bit about Peter and let our listeners learn about Peter's path to ACUMA. So I'll let you kind of take it away here and see what questions you want to line up for Peter here today.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, the first one I have is, obviously you've had quite a career in the credit union space, in the mortgage world. Can you just walk us through your professional journey of how you got to becoming the president of ACUMA?
Sure. So it's been in the industry probably at this point in time, pushing, it's definitely been over 20 years. It's spent time, yes, in the credit union space, but also with IMBs, large banks, community banks, really the full spectrum. And it wasn't just in one type of position. Like, I wasn't just always a loan officer. I wasn't always in operations. I mean, it really different types of roles throughout the industry. Really what kind of drew me to this position was the fact that I had the ability to make a larger impact in not just the credit union space, but in the larger mortgage space. Now, I never once thought I was ever going to get this job. I actually tried backing out of this job during the application process about 3 times, but the recruiter told me, keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward. I'm glad I did, but I mean, I never thought I was going to have this. I always kind of thought, at the end of the day, I'll retire as, the head of a mortgage division, which I was right before I took this position. And that, I always thought that was going to be the last thing I ever did. But, here I am, president of ACUMA. I love what I do. It's amazing seeing all the credit unions that I do and meeting all my friends across the country. There's honestly no better job I've ever had than this one.
And it's funny you say you try to back out. It's something about our industry. We try to back out and somehow we get sucked in even further, right? And we can't get out. But as someone that met you through ACUMA and have continued to work with you in many different lights, I'm actually glad you didn't back out, because you have made an amazing impact. We were kind of joking before we went live here that you've been 3.5 years as the head of ACUMA. I was actually surprised it was that short. It feels longer, and that just stands to the presence that you have built and that you are when it comes to ACUMA. So we'd love to hear, Peter, from your perspective. I don't want to have you give kind of a state of the union, if you will, but I'd love to hear, what do you feel has been kind of your biggest accomplishments over these 3.5 years that you've been leading the group in the organization?
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm proud of where we've come as far as the association, but I think the evolution of where we were and where we are, all too often, we focus, prior to me joining, the main focus on education was sales and operations. That was our main focus. Yeah, we focused on compliance, and I think that was a very important component. What I think I'm most proud of is the fact that we're now branching off into, servicing. We're now branching off into, capital markets and really trying to help our credit union members really become very well-rounded mortgage lenders. And I think that's important because in order for us to really compete in today's, I hate to say modern mortgage market, it's the full spectrum. We have to understand servicing. We have to understand capital markets through and through. It's not just about sales. It's not just about operations and the ins and outs of those two components. We have to do servicing better. We have to know how to sell in the secondary market. So I'm extremely proud of that. I mean, since I've started, we've brought on, again, 3.5 years. We've brought on 92 credit unions as members. I consider that significant growth for us. And we've rolled out a lot of great programs, different publications. We've rolled out, a marketplace for credit unions to go to obtain, discounts on various programs. So we've done a lot. I have a team of 5, including myself, and so it's really tough to pinpoint. I think the fact that we do what we do and we're out there supporting our members and they keep coming back and we keep growing, and so it's all good.
It's great. Obviously, ACUMA is a great network for credit unions and what you do for them to be able to collaborate together. And Ralph, I'm going to tee this one up for you. I know you wanted to ask this question. So it's just the way that you guys work together so much. And it's wonderful that the networking that everybody is able to pull together and the things that you are able to accomplish. But at these conventions, we mentioned it before this call, Ralph,
Yeah, I was mentioning, Peter, you and I have had the opportunity to speak about this quite a bit, about the collaboration among credit unions. I first notated it at my first ACUMA annual convention I attended a couple of years back, and it was like none other. And then, I know at the time that we're taping this, we're a week away from attending the NAMBA conference. And last year, I sat in on a credit union panel or roundtable, not panel, roundtable that you led. And I would say maybe 25 credit union member companies were represented. And they just had a chance. You led the discussion, but they all had a chance to lead a part of the discussion as well, talking about what's working for them, what are some of their opportunities or struggles, to hear from others. Just that collaboration to kind of say, hey, I'm okay being vulnerable and sharing some of my trade secrets, if you will, to help. Tell me about that, because I know you're very big on that collaboration part, and I'd love to get your take where that comes from, what your member companies get from it, because I saw it as a third party, but I'd love to hear from your perspective.
I wish that I could take credit for that. I really do. But, the idea behind collaboration and the willingness to share with each other is just the heart and soul of what credit unions do. It's, thinking back to, when I was actually a member of ACUMA, and I attended my first ACUMA event going back to, I want to say 2017. I was the head of mortgage at Lafayette Federal Credit Union, just north of Washington, D.C. I attended my first ACUMA event as a member. And I walked into this event, and they had a very similar roundtable, just like you're discussing, just like you mentioned. And we were talking about selling on the secondary market. We were talking about programs. We were talking about LO comp, and everyone was just sharing. Like, it was amazing, right? And I had just come from a community bank. I was blown away, and I was, admittedly, I was still in that community bank mindset where I don't share, I stick to myself. I was probably the only person who walked in there in a full suit, and everyone else was like, very casual, open, like they were hugging each other, and it was almost as though they knew each other like their whole lives. They were all best friends, and this was an event filled with probably, it was designed to be about 100 people, and so it was about 100 people in a room just sharing ideas. And honestly, if I would have been better prepared, I probably could have walked away with an LO comp plan. I probably could have walked away with a construction to perm loan program. This is just something credit unions do. It's just we want to help each other. We realize that we're in this together, right? We want to see each other be successful. We're not each other's competition. Yeah, we're all competitive, right? Like every single quarter, we put out a top 500 list, the top 500 credit unions who originate mortgages, and of course, you always want to see your credit union on the top of that scoreboard. But when it boils down to it, we cheer for each other, right? We're all rooting for each other to win, and that's just the different mindset of credit unions, and that's what attracted me to credit unions, and that's why I found myself never turning back to the IMBs. I found myself never turning back to the community banks or banks because it's almost like I found my people, like people who just want to give back to their communities. They want to give back to each other. It's almost like, this is probably a horrible analogy for you. And Cheri, I don't know where you live, but it's almost like a snowstorm just hit, and you're out there shoveling your driveway, and the little old lady next door is out there shoveling her driveway. Do you just like let her shovel her driveway by herself, or do you go out and lend a hand, right? The credit union would go lend a hand, right? That's just what we do. And it's like the neighborly thing to do. And
Yeah.
that's what credit unions, we want to share, we want to help. We want you to be successful, because if we're successful and we found the magic sauce, let's make everyone within our industry put more families in homes.
I don't have a lot of experience shoveling that, but Cheri has plenty of experience because she lives in Maine. So she's got plenty of
I'm
experience.
jealous. I am jealous.
I get the main neighborly thing to do. Yes. But I think as an industry, like you named it, as an industry, we're small enough that we do help each other, but the credit union piece just does take it to a whole nother level. So I think it's fantastic, and it's always very unique and interesting to see that in those environments. And that's the first thing we said when we jumped on this call, was that what stands out so directly to us. So
Yep.
As you have your convention coming up, your conference coming up, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of topics about what are some of the biggest opportunities that you see for credit unions in that mortgage lending space in the next few years.
That's a tough question. I mean, I think there's plenty of opportunities for credit unions. We need to do a couple things. I think there's the obvious. The continued adoption of technology is important, and that's never going to go away. But that goes for every mortgage lender out there, not just credit unions. It goes for banks and IMBs. When you look at the mortgage industry and you compare it to healthcare, right? The mortgage industry is far behind every other industry out there, right?
Mhm.
And credit unions, I would consider even further back than IMBs and banks, which is unfortunate. So we have to continue to make those efforts towards adopting better technology. But I think the biggest challenge for credit unions right now is that, and I said it, in another podcast, and I'm going to stick with it. Credit unions have been so focused on purchase business, and which I think is fantastic. For the longest period of time, it's always been about staying true and staying focused on member retention and refinance and home equities. And they're finally going out and trying to truly have a sound strategy around realtor relationships and building a good realtor community. But I think we're also forgetting about the need to establish a strong builder network and a strong builder platform, because we can move the rate dial so often, right? We can manufacture rates. We can build relationships with realtors. The one thing we can't control is inventory, right? The builders can control inventory. If we can have a relationship where we have a good construction to perm program, the builders can help control inventory, that's going to be our ticket to really putting more families in homes. And so I think that's going to be a huge challenge for credit unions to kind of get out there, build those relationships, and really overcome not just focusing on realtors, but also builders. And I'm sure you guys know, builders aren't easy to get into. That is a longer play than a realtor is. I mean, that if a realtor is 6 months, a builder is a year. And the last thing I'm going to say is credit unions need to do a better job of knowing their data. It's as simple as that. Anywhere from general cost per loan to the appropriate staffing models to pull-through rates, turn times, etc. Technology, yes, it's great, but those who understand their data to the point where you can determine or properly even forecast out trends, I honestly think that's what the next market is going to really require us to do as an industry. And right now, based off what I've seen over the past year, I don't think credit unions are really looking at their data enough to be successful to forecast out properly.
Yeah, I call it know your numbers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point, Peter.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, and it's funny because there's been a lot of shifts. I was surprised in a little bit of ways to hear you say they've been so purchase focused, because you hear of a lot of credit unions wanting to be purchase focused, and I don't want to. The term is not right. Is not accurate to say and get away from refinances of their members, because the members are always the key. It all starts with the member. I think you and I talked about that when it came to training, that it all starts with the member. And same thing, but now the shift goes into, okay, purchase market. And yes, there's a member acquisition that can come with that as well. But then where does that take you? What does that do? And that's where the numbers are so valuable. So that's a great point, and something that, so many need to kind of get on board with. And the question is, do they have the resources to even not just accumulate the data if they don't have it already, but then know how to analyze it and what to do with it?
Right. And, the thing is that, I hate to say this, and, it's probably a horrible way of thinking about it, but, refinances will always be there. In one way, shape, or form, the refinance opportunities will always be there, right? Purchases will not, right? And the best way to grow your portfolio, the best way to grow membership, is through purchase opportunities.
Right.
And if you're not focusing on that, you're going to struggle. Okay, so, but the problem is that we all look at the data, right? There's an inventory issue. Inventory is improving slightly, but the problem is the path to homeownership is riddled with challenges, affordability challenges, inventory challenges, you name it. We can go down a laundry list of reasons why people can't buy houses right now, right? So let's take the necessary steps to improve the path to affordability, the path to homeownership. Credit unions are excellently positioned to do that better than IMBs, better than banks. I mean, most banks are pulling out of construction lending, whereas a lot of credit unions are just now getting into it, or they have a well-established construction program. So it's just my humble 2 cents.
Yeah, and Cheri, if you want to talk through that, we do hear a lot of construction perms out there, and I know you talk to a lot of clients about that. What have you heard on your end when it comes to that program?
For construction program?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting time. Obviously, something you got to be focused on, because as you mentioned, that's all about the inventory. So, yeah, we're seeing a lot of customers that are developing or, really have big construction programs in place, making sure that they are part of that, because the majority of volume that's coming in right now for their total origination is in construction lending. So you're spot on, Peter. It's exactly where to be. Yeah.
It's not an easy program, and I fully understand it's not an easy program to originate, to keep on your books, to administer. I fully understand that. But the investment in it, in my opinion, pays off in the long run,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
There's enough, what you want to call them, fintechs or just general partners out there that can help administer that process for you, that it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, good stuff. I mean, I think you've heard so many different topics from Peter. I'm going to give a big promotion, not just because we're a sponsor of his conference, but I'm speaking. So I welcome you to come and see my session. But so many of the different things that Peter has mentioned today, you will find at the ACUMA annual convention coming up here in September. I was looking through the agenda earlier today, and boy, so many of those topics are right in so many of the sessions, whether it's a main session or one of the breakouts. So if you're contemplating going, I say take the leap and definitely attend, because it's certainly worth your time and effort and the amount of knowledge you'll get. And to what we talked about today, collaboration with your colleagues out there, your fellow member companies is going to be worth the time and investment in, tenfold, I'll say. So, Cheri, any final thoughts or questions for Peter before we kind of wrap up here?
No, just really looking forward to that conference and a lot of valuable information. And Peter, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really a pleasure to have you on. A lot of great information.
Thanks. Thank you both. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate
the
you. As always, if you want to watch this is available on our YouTube channel at National MI. Just follow us. And of course, the podcast can be downloaded wherever you download your podcast. Just make sure to subscribe, and you'll always be notified when a new episode drops. So until next time, thank you again to Peter Benjamin, our guest here today. I am Ralph, and we look forward to seeing you all again on the Mortgage Mix podcast soon. Take care, everybody.